It started like any other Tuesday morning. I woke up with the sun creeping through the blinds, warm and lazy on my face. I rolled over, expecting to find her still asleep beside me. Instead, I saw the empty bed and the faint smell of coffee lingering in the air. That's when I noticed the small, crumpled note on the pillow. "Meet me in the kitchen. Hurry. Love you." It was her handwriting, curvy, a little hurried but unmistakably hers. I stretched, feeling a flicker of happiness. She was planning breakfast, or maybe just giving me a quick note to start the day. I got up, the cool wooden floor cold against my feet, and headed to the kitchen. The house was quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. I found her sitting at the table, a cup of coffee in her hands, staring out the window as if she was miles away. Something felt off immediately. Her eyes weren't the usual sparkle, and her face was a little too tense. I sat across from her, trying to shake off the strange feeling. "Good morning," I said softly, trying to sound casual. She looked up, forced a smile. "Hey, sorry I didn't wake you. I had to leave early." "Leave early? Where to?" I asked, already noticing her evasive tone, the way her fingers tapped nervously on the mug. She hesitated. "Just a quick run to the office. You know, meetings and stuff." That struck me as odd. She rarely left before I was up. Usually she'd kiss me goodbye after breakfast, maybe even leave a note herself. The lack of her usual routine sent a small jolt through my chest. I noticed her purse on the counter, bulging slightly, and her phone next to it. I made a mental note of both, though I didn't say anything. Later that day, I decided to check her phone. I've been suspicious for weeks, little things like the late nights, her disappearing into the office, her quick responses that never quite sat right. I knew I shouldn't, but curiosity got the better of me. I unlocked her phone and saw a flurry of messages, flirty, intimate, way beyond what I thought was normal for her. One message from a number I didn't recognize. "Tonight's just the beginning." My stomach dropped. My hands felt cold and clammy. I scrolled further and saw pictures, her cozy and laughing in what looked like a hotel room. My mind spun, trying to process the flood of betrayal washing over me. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. How long had this been going on? Had I ever truly known her? Or was I just blind, walking around with my eyes shut? Every time I told myself she was loyal, I'd been just fooling myself. That night I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, trying to piece together how I hadn't seen the signs. She was always careful, covering her tracks, hiding her phone, but those messages, they were right in front of me. I just hadn't wanted to look. The worst part, she was supposed to be the one I trusted most. She was the one I was about to propose to. I'd planned that dinner for weeks, picked out the perfect ring, rehearsed the words, and now I wondered if she'd been planning her own betrayal all along. I kept replaying the scene in my mind, her face, her smile, her voice, all of it a lie. I was furious, but more than that, I felt stupid for not seeing it sooner. I've been so wrapped up in our future, so desperate to believe she was the one, that I ignored every tiny red flag. The way she avoided my eyes, the late-night messages, the secretive phone calls, all of it was hiding in plain sight, and I'd been blind. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just let her get away with this. Not after everything. I had to decide what my next move was, but I already knew there'd be consequences. I just didn't know how big. The thought of losing her, of all the plans I'd made my stomach churn. But I also knew this wasn't just about her cheating. It was about trust, respect, and whether I could ever look at her the same way again. Now I had a choice to make. Confront her, or something else. The plan was forming in my mind. I wasn't the kind of guy to let betrayal slide without a fight. She might have thought she could keep this hidden forever, but I was done being the fool. And that's when I realized I was already planning my revenge, whether she knew it or not. The next day, I woke up with that familiar feeling of rage simmering under my skin. I kept replaying everything, the messages, the photos, her quick, nervous responses. It was like a virus in my mind, infecting every quiet moment with suspicion and anger. I knew I had to act carefully. I wasn't going to blow everything up in a stupid rage. No, I needed a plan, something precise, something that would make her regret every second she spent betraying me. I started by doing what I should have done from the beginning, digging. I had her phone, her emails, her social media, all of it. I wanted to find out how long this had been going on, who else knew, and how deep the rabbit hole went. I pored over her texts, her call logs, even her recent calendar appointments. Nothing about her behavior indicated she was planning this big betrayal. She was good at hiding, I'll give her that. But I was getting closer to the truth. I found out she'd been frequenting that boutique hotel near her office for at least a couple of months. She'd been booking rooms under a different name, paying cash, always late at night or early morning. That explained the late-night calls, the secretive texts. I felt a cold sweat break out. She'd been sneaking around me right under my nose for a long time. Then I discovered something else, something that made my stomach turn. A receipt for a small shop tucked inside her purse, paid in cash. The purchase. A fresh set of keys to that hotel room. She'd been going there regularly, I realized, and probably sleeping with him. My fingers trembled as I held the receipt. It was proof that she'd been lying, cheating, hiding it all. That night I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat in the dark, my mind racing. I knew I had to confront her, but I wouldn't do it blindly. I wanted her to see that I knew, see that her lies were exposed. I'd been planning this for days, gathering all the evidence I needed. I decided I'd leave her a trail of breadcrumbs, something that would give her no escape. I set up a fake social media account, one that looked innocent but was actually a trap. I started messaging her from that account, pretending I was interested. I wanted her to slip up, to show her true colors. I knew her nature well enough by then. She was the type to get careless when she thought she was in control. The plan was simple. I'd bait her into thinking I was still clueless, then catch her in the act. I sent her a message that night, playing the part of a curious stranger. "Hey, I saw you at the hotel last week. Everything okay?" I typed slowly, each word dripping with suspicion. She responded almost immediately, her reply quick and nervous. "What are you talking about? Who is this?" That was the moment I'd been waiting for. I fired back, "Just some guy who saw you. Thought you should know someone saw you coming and going. Seems like you're hiding something." There was silence on the other end. Then she tried to deny it, of course, but I'd already seen enough. I knew her game now, and I was ready to strike. The climax came sooner than I expected. I arranged to meet her at the place she thought she was safe, her favorite cafe, a quiet corner where she thought she could lie without suspicion. I arrived early, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. I had the evidence folded in my pocket, screenshots of her messages, the hotel receipts, the photos. I wasn't going to back down. When she walked in, her face paled and her eyes darted around nervously. She saw me and her lips trembled. "What are you doing here?" she asked, voice trembling. I didn't hold back. I pulled out my phone, showing her everything I'd uncovered. "This," I said coldly, "is what I've been digging up. The hotel receipts, the secret keys, the messages. How long has this been going on?" She looked like she wanted to disappear. "It's not what it looks like," she stammered. "I was just stressed. I didn't mean for it to go this far." I clenched my fists. "You didn't mean for it, that's your excuse. You cheated on me with my best friend and you think a stress excuse is going to cover it." Her eyes welled with tears. "I didn't want to hurt you. I was stupid. I was weak." That was the moment I realized I had to follow through. I couldn't just walk away and pretend this didn't happen. I wasn't that guy. No, I had a plan, a way to make her understand what her betrayal had cost. I told her I needed some space, that I'd be back later to get my things. I left her sitting there, trembling and crying. As I walked out, I felt a strange sense of clarity, a mixture of pain, anger, and relief. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my dignity. That night I sat in my apartment, trembling with adrenaline. I knew I had to act fast. I had her keys, her phone, her emails. Everything I needed to finish what I'd started. I wanted her to realize that betrayal had consequences, and that I was prepared to make her regret everything she'd done. The plan was set. The pieces were in motion, and I couldn't wait to see if she'd finally understand she'd crossed a line she couldn't come back from. The following days felt like walking on a razor's edge. I kept my calm, but inside, I was simmering with a mixture of anger and cold determination. The evidence I'd gathered was my ace, proof she couldn't deny or escape from. I wasn't about to confront her again until I was ready, until I knew exactly how I was going to make this play out. I decided that she needed to see her actions for what they truly were, and I wanted her to understand that her lies were exposed, that her secret world was collapsing around her. I began to plan how I'd use her own betrayal against her subtly, without outright destroying everything in a fit of rage. It was all about control, about making her feel vulnerable and cornered, just like she'd made me feel. I already knew her habits. She was predictable in some ways. She'd check her phone constantly, especially after I left her alone. So I set my plan into motion. I created a fake email account, one under a different name, and started to send her messages. Nothing too obvious, just enough to keep her guessing. I sent casual, seemingly innocent notes, but with enough subtlety to lure her into slipping up further. "Hey, I saw you at the hotel again last night," I wrote, carefully crafted to sound like a random admirer. "You look pretty stressed lately. Want to talk?" She responded almost immediately, her text trembling with nervous energy. "Who is this? How did you find me?" My reply was calm, measured. "Just someone who cares. Maybe we can meet up, no pressure." It was perfect. She was already starting to feel hunted, cornered by her own secrets. It was like she was walking a tightrope and I was the weight that kept her off balance. One evening I arranged to be caught in her house. I left my phone on the counter with a recording app running. When she returned home, I was already there, waiting in the living room with a calm, cold expression on my face. Froze in the doorway, eyes wide with fear and guilt. "Why are you here?" she asked, voice cracking. I looked at her steadily. "I'm here because I know everything. The hotel, the secret keys, the messages. I know what you did with my best friend." Her face blanched. "It's not what it looks like." "Oh, I think it is." I cut her off. "You thought you could hide it forever, that I'd never find out, but I did." She stepped towards me, her hands trembling. "Please, I didn't mean for it to happen like this. I was stupid, I was weak, I'm sorry." I shook my head slowly, feeling the cold edge of my resolve. "Sorry doesn't cut it anymore. You lied to me, you betrayed me, and you destroyed everything we had." I could see her sinking into despair, her shoulders slumping. That's when I decided I'd had enough of playing nice. I told her I had one last thing to do, one last gesture to make her understand what her betrayal truly meant. I pulled out the folder I'd prepared, screenshots of her messages, the hotel receipts, the hotel keys I'd copied. I handed her the folder, watching as her hands shook while she looked through the evidence. Her eyes darted back and forth, horror dawning on her face. "I guess you're right," she whispered, voice barely audible. "I ruined everything." I looked at her, feeling more distant than ever. "You did, and now I need to decide what to do next," she begged, tears streaming down her face. "Please don't do anything drastic. I'll fix this, I swear. Just give me a chance." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything crashing down on me. I knew I couldn't keep this secret anymore, not if I wanted to reclaim my dignity. The betrayal had cut too deep, and I was done pretending I didn't see the truth. It was time for the final move. I made a decision then, one that would end this chapter of my life forever. I told her I'd be back the next day to collect my things, and then I turned to leave, feeling a strange sense of relief mixed with heartbreak. As I walked out of her house, I realized I'd already begun to take control. The game was almost over, and I knew she'd never forget this night. I didn't want revenge for revenge's sake, but I wanted her to see that betrayal always comes with a price, and I was the one who was paying it now. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling around the same thoughts, her tears, the evidence, how deep her lies went. But more than anything, I felt a strange sense of clarity. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. She played her hand, and now it was my turn to make her feel the consequences. The next morning, I woke up with a plan set in motion. I knew she'd be home later that day, probably desperate to fix things or maybe just to get her last chance to manipulate me. Either way, I was ready. I had to make the final move, but it had to be precise, controlled, and definitive. I decided I'd confront her at her place, but this time I'd do it with everything laid out. I meticulously prepared a folder, printouts of all the evidence I'd collected, the hotel receipts, the secret keys, screenshots of her messages, her late-night texts. I also included a copy of the fake email account's chat logs, so she'd see I'd been watching her every move. I wanted her to understand that her lies had been uncovered completely, and that I knew every detail. When she arrived home that afternoon, I was already waiting. She looked surprised but tried to hide it, her eyes flickering with guilt and fear. I had her sit down on the sofa and I placed the folder directly in front of her. Be honest, I started, voice cold but controlled. This is everything. Your hotel stays, the keys, the messages. You thought you could hide it forever, didn't you? She swallowed hard, her hands trembling. Please, I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was weak, I made a mistake, I never wanted to hurt you. I leaned forward, my voice sharper now. A mistake? You lied to me for months, you cheated with my best friend and you thought I'd never find out. Her eyes welled with tears and she looked away, unable to meet my gaze. I was stupid. I thought I could fix it. I thought I could have both worlds, my work, my secret, and you. I never wanted to lose you, but I did everything wrong. I felt every ounce of my frustration boil over. You didn't just cheat, you betrayed my trust in the worst way. You exploited my kindness, my love, and I don't know if I can ever forgive you for that. Her voice broke. Please, just give me a chance to fix this. I'll do anything, therapy, whatever, you just have to forgive me. I shook my head slowly, feeling the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. No, not anymore. You had your chance and you threw it away. I see now that I was fooling myself. Thinking I knew her, I never really knew you at all. She looked devastated, like her entire world was crumbling. She reached out, pleading, don't do this. Please, I love you. I cut her off. Love, if you loved me, you wouldn't have betrayed me. You wouldn't have lied. You wouldn't have cheated. I want you to understand. What you did isn't just a mistake. It's a choice, and it's one I won't forget. I looked at the evidence spread before her, then at her tear-streaked face. I knew I had to conclude this chapter. I reached into my pocket, pulling out the keys I'd secretly kept. I placed them on the table right in front of her. These are the keys to your secret life, I said softly but firmly. You can keep them if you want, but I want nothing to do with this anymore. I'm done. I want my things and I want you out of my life. Her eyes widened in shock, realizing I had already planned everything. I'd packed my belongings earlier that morning, clothes, a few personal items, a few sentimental things that reminded me of a better time. I slipped them into a duffel bag, ready to leave forever. I walked to the door, then turned back. You had your chance, but from now on I'll be living a different life, one where trust is earned, not given blindly, and you'll never get that trust back from me. I handed her a small envelope. Inside was the last message I wanted her to read, my final words. Goodbye. I hope you realize what you lost. Without another word, I turned the knob, grabbed my keys, and walked out. The door clicked shut behind me, sealing the chapter of betrayal forever. As I stepped into the sunlight, I felt an odd mixture of relief and emptiness. I'd taken control, I'd made my statement, and I was finally free. That was the day I learned that sometimes the only way to heal is to cut out everything that's toxic, no matter how much it hurts. And honestly, it was the best decision I'd made in a long time. Because no matter what, I knew now that I deserved honesty and respect, things she'd refused to give me. The days after I left her place felt strange, almost unreal. The weight that had been pressing down on my chest for weeks finally lifted, but a quiet ache remained, the kind that settles in after betrayal, after realizing someone you trusted so completely was just pretending all along. I spent hours sorting through my things, packing what I needed and deliberately leaving the rest behind. There was no point dragging out the pain. I wanted closure, not guilty lingering. Once I was finally ready, I walked to my car, feeling the cool air bite at my skin. The keys she had given me still burned in my pocket. I'd made up my mind. I was done completely. That's when I decided I'd do one last thing, something that would cement this ending and send her a message she couldn't ignore. I drove to her house, my house, now officially her ex's. I knew she'd be watching her phone, waiting for some sign I'd change my mind. But I had no intention of doing that. Instead, I went inside and took a moment to breathe, looking around at the place that once held our dreams. Now it felt cold and hollow. I found her set of keys still on the kitchen table and I pocketed them. She might think she could keep her secrets, but I'd made sure she'd never have access to this life again. Then I pulled out the last part of my plan. I walked to her bedroom and grabbed her phone, which she'd left on the nightstand. I knew her passcode, her birthday, and I used it. I opened her messages, scrolling through her texts, images, and most importantly, her conversations with my best friend. Every word, every lie, every betrayal. I snapped a few screenshots, then set her phone down and removed the SIM card. I wanted her to think her entire world was slipping away. I knew she'd soon realize her secrets were exposed, but I also wanted to give her a taste of her own medicine, being betrayed, left vulnerable and isolated. I left her house with the keys, the evidence, and a quiet sense of finality. As I walked away, I texted her from a number she didn't recognize. "You're not the person I thought you were. Goodbye forever." No explanation, no pleading, just the truth wrapped in a simple message. That night I sat alone in my apartment, a sense of peace slowly settling over me. I'd finally taken control, and I'd made sure. She felt the impact of her actions. She'd always say she loved me, but her actions proved otherwise. I knew deep down I had made the right choice. Sometimes, love isn't enough when it's built on lies. And here's the thing, moving on was the hardest part. But I learned something important from all of this. No matter how much you want to believe in someone, the truth will come out. If you ignore the red flags, if you turn a blind eye, you're only delaying the inevitable. It's better to face it early, take control, and cut your losses. Because once trust is broken, rebuilding it is almost impossible. And sometimes the best revenge is simply walking away and refusing to let someone manipulate your life anymore. I sent her the last message, then blocked her number and social media. No more contact. No more lies, just a clear boundary. I'm done. And honestly, it feels good. The pain fades, but the lessons stay. Trust is fragile and betrayal shatters it, sometimes permanently. Knowing that, I'll never ignore my gut again. And I advise anyone reading, if someone shows even a hint of betrayal, don't wait. Cut your losses, walk away, and protect your peace. Because in the end, you're the only one responsible for your happiness, and nobody deserves to take that away from you. It's been a few weeks now since I walked out of her house for the last time. At first, every day felt like a punch to the gut, like I was living in a fog of betrayal. But slowly, that haze began to lift. I started reclaiming my mornings, my evenings, even just my own thoughts. It's strange how much space betrayal can take up in your mind, how it infects your sense of trust, your future. But I learned something invaluable in all this. The only person responsible for my happiness is me. I finally sat down to reflect on everything. I realized that I'd spent so long trying to see the best in her, making excuses, ignoring the signs. I thought love meant turning a blind eye to red flags, thinking I could fix things or that somehow it was all worth fighting for. But betrayal doesn't get fixed. It's a scar that stays, reminding you of what once was and what could have been. The truth is, I was never really blind. I saw the signs, those little momentary hesitations, the late nights she never explained, the secretive glances at her phone. I just didn't want to face them. I wanted to believe in a fairy tale, even when the truth was right in front of me, plain as day. The lesson: trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, it usually is. Ignoring it only makes the fall worse. Looking back, I'm proud of how I handled everything. I stayed calm, collected, and disciplined. I didn't lash out or become another angry statistic. Instead, I gathered my proof, planned my exit, and made sure she knew she'd lost me for good. That was my way of taking control, an act of self-respect, not revenge. Sometimes the best revenge is simply walking away and showing someone you're stronger without them. Now, I'm focusing on rebuilding my life. I've started going out more, reconnecting with friends, and rediscovering what I enjoy. I've even signed up for a weekend workshop I'd been putting off for months. It's not about forgetting. It's about moving forward, learning from the past, and making sure I don't get blinded again. And I want to tell anyone out there going through something similar, trust is fragile. When you see the signs, don't brush them aside. Face the truth for your own sake. Because no matter how much you want to believe in someone, if they betray your trust, the damage leaves a mark. The best thing you can do is cut your losses, walk away with your head held high, and remind yourself that you're worth more than lies and betrayal. My final thought: love should build you up, not tear you down. And if someone's actions tell you otherwise, don't hesitate. Cut the cord. You deserve honesty, loyalty, and respect, nothing less. Staying in a place of betrayal only prolongs the pain. So my advice: be brave enough to let go. Because the only way to truly heal is to release what no longer serves you and trust that better days are waiting, the kind of days where you're finally free to trust yourself again.